And we start as usual with the Tibetan refuge prayers and bodhicitta and the four immeasurable ones. Bhadan sawe lama rinpoche dangin chiwon benden dan shon la kaden chempen gonen jeson te koson tongeng adron salus sangye chedan sangye janam la janjom pandon dane kyapsun jin dhagin jin son jin pesanam ji Jolam Benji Sangye Jompai Sho Sangye Cheda Sangye Janam Lan Janjom Pado Dane Kapsunji Dagin Jinzon Jimbesanamji Jola Benji Sangin Jompai Shok Sangye Chedan Sangin Janam Lan Janjom Padon Dani Kapsun Jin Dagin Jin Zon Jin Besanam Ji Jolam Penji Sangyen Jompai Sho Sim Chen Tam Jen Devan Dan Devan Yun Dan Dem Ban Jun Jin Dan 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 Jin Jun Dan Devan Jun Jin Dan Mem Ban Devan Dam Ban Dam Min Devan Jun Jin Niren Chandan Nidan Javetan Dan Chambolan Ban Jun Jin Sam Chan Tam Jan Devan Dan Devan Yun Dan Dam Ban Jun Jin Dunan Dan Dunan Jin Jun Dan Devan Jun Jin Dunan Mem Ban Devan Dam Ban Dam Min Devan Jun Jin Niren Chandan Nidan Javetan Dan Chambolan Ban Jun Jin Sam Chan Tam Jan Devan Dan Devan Yun Dan Dam Ban Jun Jin Dunan Dan Dunan Jin Dan Devan Jun Jin Dunan Mem Ban Devan Dam Ban Dam Min Devan Jun Jin Niren Chandan Nidan Javetan Dan Chambolan Ban Jun Jin. Thank you very much for participating. As I said in the introduction videos, this series of teachings on the Moonbeams of Mahamudra, written down by Dakpota Namgyal, is actually a very comprehensive outline of Mahamudra. Usually, this was meant in Tibet for lamas to study. It was not available to the normal practitioner. And I decided to teach this some years ago. Actually, this is the second time I teach it. I taught it already in France once. Because Genda Rinpoche said that in the future, if we really want to understand how Mahamudra is practiced and why it is practiced like that, then we should study this book. And so I studied it for myself, I studied it with a small retreat group in France, and now we are studying it together. And I said to myself, I will teach it no matter how many people come. Even if there is just one person present, two people present, I will do it. And then there was a lot of interest in it. And now what you're participating in is kind of the catch-up course for the English speaking. Because the main teaching was given in German, always with English translation, but it is difficult for English-speaking people, especially also for you, the Brazilians and Americans, to participate when a course is being held in Germany. So now we are already in part 2 of the book, which starts on page 113. And this section, this second part of the book, is dedicated to explain the Mahamudra approach, giving the additional informations of just what makes this approach Mahamudra in comparison to what was taught in the first part, the common approach, common to all traditions, to all other Buddhist traditions. So I thought today, to start, I will leaf through with some of you who have the book, I will leaf through the pages. We are on page 113, which starts out with generating confidence. And as we leaf through, I remind you of the things I taught yesterday. So it's a kind of revision, you can say. The first page gives the outline of the explanations to follow. Page 114 gives the meaning of the name Mahamudra, and the various enumerations, the subdivisions, are in the following pages. Now, if you were sitting in front of me, I would now ask you, what do you remember from yesterday as the definition of Mahamudra? How would you say it simple? Why mudra and why maha? Anyone here in the room? Niklas? Why mudra?
I think because anything we experience seems, although it cannot be described, you can say that there's some kind of something that characterizes it.
Very good.
And this is the ungraspable or empty nature of it.
Yes, it's called mudra because something manifests very clearly and points to its deeper nature, the ungraspable empty nature. So mudra means the empty nature of all phenomena. And why maha? Remember something?
There is no other such, so to speak, characteristic that you could give to something which is in a way greater than saying that it's completely empty.
Yeah, pretty much like that. There's no greater Dharma than that, and it is called Maha, big, because it covers really all phenomena, all experiences without exception. So it's the biggest of the biggest because it's all phenomena, it's total. So it's you can say it's the symbolic teaching, the mudra, which teaches us the empty nature of all phenomena without exception. That would be the short summary of what is called the definition of the name. And then in section B, 117, we were talking about the essence, the essential nature of Mahamudra. And again, in a classroom situation, I would ask you, ground, path, and fruition Mahamudra. But I don't want to make everyone uneasy, so I will give the answer myself. The ground is our own mind's nature, also sometimes called Buddha nature. So it's the basic nature of mind. The path Mahamudra is what unveils, which takes the veils away, the coverings away, and lets the ground of our being appear more and more clearly. It becomes manifest. And when it is fully manifest, we call that fruition Mahamudra. So the path of practice makes the Buddha ground, the Buddha nature, fully manifest, and when it's fully manifest, it's called Buddhahood. So that you can remember very easily. The ground, Buddha nature, the path which purifies, and then Buddha nature fully manifest is Buddhahood. So these are synonyms of ground, path, and fruition Mahamudra. So this was on pages 119. And then on 120, we are coming now to the section of today. How Mahamudra is presented in the sutras and tantras. And again, for our translators and for everyone following, the study of the text, this was already done in the course, and there are all the audio recordings when I went through word by word, sentence by sentence. Now I will give you an overview. The overview is what I believe a very motivated practitioner needs to know, needs to kind of retain. And here we are still in the chapter of generating confidence. This means Dr. Tashinamga now wants us to realize, to understand that Mahamudra is not a Tibetan invention, but that it already was mentioned in the sutras and tantras. This was very important because self-made Dharma is unacceptable. You don't make up your own Dharma and pretend this leads to awakening. This has to be based on the teachings of fully awakened teachers. So the sutras, the words of the Buddha, they mention Mahamudra as the mudra of liberation. The possibility to become liberated through the mudra of what we experience. Our experiences themselves, they have like the key to unlock our understanding for how to become completely free. Sometimes it is called the non-dual mudra in the Mahayana Sutras. The non-dual mudra means that in the actual experience there's no subject and object. There is no division into the dual aspects of self and other. Sometimes it is called the pure mudra. Pure means without clinging. That there is no clinging inherent to our experience. The clinging comes extra. Experience as such is pure. It's free from the stains of a subject, a me, clinging to a seemingly separate experience. So also the sutras talk about all phenomena, all experiences being imprinted with the mudra of equality. And actually we know this teaching. All phenomena are equal in their empty, ungraspable nature. That's the equality of all phenomena. Outwardly, they're completely different. Rainy weather is not sunny weather. Harmful action is not beneficial action. But as an experience of mind, they are equally ungraspable. That's the equal nature of all phenomena. Sometimes it's called the stainless mudra, the internally pure mudra, the naturally luminous mudra. So many terms. Naturally luminous is even found in the Pali Canon, that the mind is self-radiant, naturally luminous. This means that awareness, mind, consciousness has the inherent capacity to always bring forth new experiences. This is the luminosity of mind, because it's clearly distinguished. Sometimes the Mahamudras also referred to as the primordially unborn mudra, which means no one invented it. It is always there and has never started and will never end. That's meant by primordially unborn. Sometimes it's called the non-abiding mudra, which means you cannot find it in a place. The unceasing mudra, because it never stops. And the mudra of emptiness, of empty nature. So all these lists, they are not to be retained in your mind as like a memory. What Dakpo Tashinangat actually wishes is that with all these different terms, that we get an understanding of what we are entering, what field of practice we are entering with Mahamudra, and that the confidence develops, actually, it was already pointed to in the sutras, in the words of the Buddha. Different mudras were mentioned there. And then he continues and he says, well, in the tantras we also find varying lists of 3 or 4 mudras. These lists of mudras, they usually include Mahamudra or they culminate in Mahamudra. This means that the other mudras actually find their highest expression in the Mahamudra practice. And yesterday I already explained briefly to you Karma Mudra. Remember the Karma Yoga, what it was? Stefan, what was it?
On the one hand,
Working,
action. For benefit.
Yes.
On the other hand, it was with a partner.
Yes, the practice with the partner, union with the partner. Karma Mudra has many significations, but actually it means action. So it points to the aspect of our practice where we will include our practice with all forms of action. Is there a little sound problem?
No, one day people...
I will repeat.
Yes.
I will repeat what they say so you don't have to worry about the sound in the room. Then we had other mudras. For example, we had Samaya Mudra, Jnana Mudra, Dhamma Mudra. And Jnana Mudra is another word for timeless awareness mudra, for wisdom mudra. Actually, it's to visualize the union inwardly, often in Yab-Yum practices. So it's a visualization process where there is no more need of outer activity and outer union, but all of this is practiced with the development, the generation phase of tantric practice. And then this elaborate generation phase can be condensed into very essential energetic work. It's called Samaya Mudra. It's the Tummo practice, the Chandali practice, where one works with just the mind of awakening, the bodhicitta, in different chakras, moving through different chakras and setting free the understanding of empty, clear nature, the union of bliss and empty nature, clarity and empty nature, and so on. And then this subtle practice will naturally move into what we call Dharma Mudra. And here Dharma Mudra means to work with all phenomena, to work with all dharmas. Dharma means also phenomena. So we work with all experiences. And that's then where the bodhicitta, the Buddha mind, is discovered in every single experience. And culminates in naturally abiding in that understanding, which would then be called Mahamudra. Sorry to have you go through the repetition, but I know that repetitions actually are very helpful. They make the things go deeper, which we have heard yesterday. So, actually, Dr. Shinamka wants us to understand that Mahamudra was mentioned in the source text of the Tantric tradition. And there it is explained as something that I would like now already to bring into your experience, because there are so many words, but I would love to help you actually feel it. Mahamudra is said to be simplicity. So also now, try not to put your mind into knots with understanding all these words, but go into the most simple, receptive state of mind. Like we said yesterday, similar to space, very open, very spacious. They call it non-elaboration, freedom from complexity, or simplicity. The simplicity we are talking about is that all the processes of our life are not interfered with by me, by the I getting worried, wanting something. We leave them simply as they are, and we trust the natural qualities of our mind, like I do now. Yes, I trust that somehow this mind will find its way through the teaching, right? If I get anxious, if I want, then I will create complications. So it's the same with listening, with understanding. Let's listen without getting complicated. That was already pointed to in the tantras. Simplicity, non-elaboration. And also, the tantras speak about joy. It's actually the central point of the tantric approach, is to guide us into the realization of the empty nature of joy, happiness, bliss. So Mahamudra is not a special joy. It's not something we have to create. It's actually the easiness that we experience, which we may experience right now, as we feel just how simple and splendid mind is. It is a natural joy which does not need any special conditions. It's the most common experience of now, Simple sounds, simple sights, simple physical feelings, mental activity. You could say it's the joy of a relaxed mind enjoying its own natural expression. And at the same time being aware of the ungraspable nature of all that. And this is not an intellectual process. So the natural joy in the recognition of its empty nature. This is Mahamudra. Sometimes Mahamudra is also equated with ground dharmata. Actually, the basic state everything is. The basic way it is. Dharmata means as it is, suchness, as phenomena are. And Mahamudra is said to be that in the tantras. So, Kenu Rinpoche would say, just so. Like Saraha. Actually, that's where it comes from. Just so. And sometimes then, in a more elaborate sense, then it is referred to Mahamudra as the wisdom lady, or prajna paramita, transcendent wisdom. Here, lady or mother, Mahamudra is also called the mother, which gives birth to all Buddhas. Of course, there is no mother, but everyone who awakens through the nature of mind. And that ground nature of mind is like the matrix, the womb, which gives birth to all realizations. So Mahamudra is also that. It's that basic dimension which makes it possible to awaken. So all of this is already said in the sutras and tantras without even quoting a single Mahamudra text. And this is what Dakpota Shinamga wanted us to understand. That even before Mahamudra songs and writings appeared, that all of this was already in the air. And then what we call the Mahamudra text and transmission is pulling that together and passing it on as the transmission of essential Dharma, the pointing out of just how it is. And Tashi Namgyal writes, and we are now in page 128 on the bottom. You see, I've covered a lot of pages now. We are turning 7 pages to get there. On the bottom of the page 128, he writes, in brief, we should know that all the presentations on the ground abiding state of phenomena, natural emptiness, natural connateness, equality, unchanging bliss, great bliss, being free from arising, abiding and ceasing, profound peace and freedom from elaborations in the tantras and in the text of the Mahasiddhas are presentations of Mahamudra. So I will not go again into those words. The words, one can always make more words about them. The idea here is when you come across some of these sayings on the basic nature of mind, then you should know, actually, this is an explanation of Mahamudra. if you come across a teaching on primordial purity, which is a term of the Dzogchen tradition, then you should know, that's also Mahamudra. If you come across teaching on profound peace, which is another term for nirvana, the non-abiding nirvana, which is not in a place, which is not dependent on conditions, then you should know, this is a Mahamudra teaching. So actually, Tashi Namgyal wants us to understand that you can find Mahamudra teachings in texts of the tantras and the Mahasiddhas, where the word Mahamudra does not even appear. So that opens up for the deep understanding of the whole Dharma actually belonging together. And because I'm a fan of the Pali Canon, of the tradition, the traditional text of the Theravada tradition, then actually I find Mahamudra also in those teachings. It's possible. When you have the intuition, you can feel that the Buddha was always teaching from that perspective, although the words are very different. And that's what all the great teachers say, all the Karmapas, also the Dzogchen masters like Longchen-pa, all the great masters like Karma-Chakma and so on, those teachers which we study, they always say, and Gene Rinpoche encouraged me in that sense also, the Buddha never taught anything else but Mahamudra. It's all one teaching. Except that sometimes you make a lot of small steps to guide students up into that understanding. But there has never been any other teaching but impermanence, right? From the very beginning of the Buddhist training 12,500 years ago, everything is about change. Now change is a synonym of Mahamudra. Change means dynamic nature. Everything is process. If everything is process, everything is ungraspable. That's the empty nature. The one empty nature which is the nature of all phenomena. So with the teaching on impermanence, we are straight into Mahamudra. And vice versa. With teaching on Mahamudra, we are in understanding that none of those phenomena are permanent. Not even for the split second. It's all one Dharma. That's what Tashi Namgyal wants us to understand here. And he continues, after refuting some erroneous views of his time. This refutation of erroneous views of his times is on page 129, dispelling the wrong views of others. And we jump those pages because those disputes have been settled. And then we come on 136 to the chapter precisely identifying the essence or essential nature of this path. And I wanted to continue on one page before. On the bottom, the headline is How Mahamudra is the Profound Point of All Sutras and Tantras, 135. And then the title I just quoted is the first one of that. So the title says Mahamudra is the profound point of all sutras and tantras, of all Buddhist teachings. I hope to get that clear, really. I wish that everyone understands this. I'm not inventing something. It's not like Tillman trying to make the one Dharma esoteric view, all Buddhist teaching is the same. Here we have an author of the 15th century who says exactly that. That's the one point, the profound point. It was filtered out to understand the empty, ungraspable, process nature of all phenomena as the one point of all Buddhist teachings, sutras and tantras. Okay, based on many quotes then, and these quotes are in the pages following, then actually this covers the whole section until 148. Then he describes the essential nature of the Mahamudra approach. And if you summarize the Mahamudra approach, you can say, I've summarized it into 4 points following Dakpotashi Namgyal. Mahamudra is a path of direct cognition, direct understanding of the ground, of the nature of mind, of the nature of life, of the nature of phenomena. So direct cognition, direct insight. Okay. You can also call it the vehicle of the unsurpassed essence. Okay? Vehicle means here path of practice. It's a path of practice where we focus on the essential nature, the unsurpassed essential nature. They cannot be deeper, cannot be higher. The one nature that is the core understanding of awakening. So-called empty nature, ungraspable, dynamic, luminous, clear, all of that. Mahamudra is also, this would be the third point, the direct path into the realization of suchness. So the key word is suchness, as it is. Not something special, as such. So it's right here. It's always right here. Suchness has become a very important term in the Mahamudra tradition because it helps us to abandon all searching for some understanding elsewhere, for some good mind elsewhere, for some good experience elsewhere. We're talking about now, right now, the suchness of just how it is. And there, as we learn to tune into that, and that would be the direct path, the tuning into the suchness of now involves an intuitive understanding of no center. No one there, no one separate from the experience. Just life displaying itself. No separation. This is the co-emergent or connate unity. Whatever arises at the same time is empty. That's the direct path of realizing suchness. Sometimes Mahamudra is also called the uncontrived yoga. Now the word yoga, everyone knows, it means to unite, to bring together. Also sometimes it simply means practice. But it is a practice of unification. Otherwise it wouldn't be called yoga. This is true for all yogas. Also the Hindu yoga. It's a practice of unification. Now here it is called the uncontrived yoga some of you are not so good in English. It means, uncontrived means non-artificial, natural, no effort, nothing to be done. So that's what Mahamudra became famous for, that it is a completely natural approach to practice. Now my problem as a teacher is, when I teach this to some, especially the very young ones, they hear this teaching on remain completely relaxed and natural, trust your mind. And what happens? Somehow laziness takes over. I don't know how that happens. It's a misunderstanding. Somehow natural means to them to follow whatever comes into mind. But actually that's not natural. That's the grasping. So by non-artificial, the Mahamudra tradition means not grasping to happy experiences, not grasping to unhappy experiences, not grasping to dullness, remaining naturally open without any effort of grasping. So that's where we need to learn something. We need to learn that without noticing, we're actually in a quite artificial state of mind. We're actually contrived, we're artificial, we're not really ourselves because there's still so much tension there of automatically going for the agreeable and pushing away the disagreeable. So this happens so quickly that we're not aware and we think it's natural. Okay, but the true natural being is Mahamudra. When we are natural here means free of all stress, of anything, of all manipulation, of all clinging, of all aversion. So, summary for those who want to take notes, but actually I will post my notes together with the videos, so you will have my notes, that's for sure. The 4 terms I could distill, I could pull out of Dakbuddha Shinamga's teachings are path of direct cognition, direct insight, vehicle of the unsurpassed essence, direct path into the realization of suchness, and uncontrived yoga. So, all of this for Dakbuddha Shinamgyal is still just the introduction. It's like to generate confidence. And maybe you feel the effect of it as you are in a relaxed mode of listening. Maybe you feel that somehow, in spite of the many words, there is an inspiration coming through and a confidence, okay, that seems to be good stuff. That's very inspiring. I want to know more. Yes? And and it's authentic. Maybe this feeling of authenticity also comes through. That we are not talking in the air, although sometimes it sounds like a little bit in the air, like reminds us maybe of some esoteric teachings, but this is deeper. This is somehow very, very true. It's more simple, and it's not about having special experiences. It's always about the simplicity of now. Nothing special. Nobody special, no special experiences, no special mind. So, that's the approach of Mahamudra. And now I read another sentence of my notes. To further generate confidence in the authenticity of this approach, Dakbuddha Shinamgyal shortly describes the origins of the Mahamudra lineage in India and how it was then transmitted in Tibet. And this gives the whole lineage of how the Mahamudra teaching originated with that term, Mahamudra, how it came to masters like Sara, to masters like Tilopa and Naropa, how then from them it came to the Tibetan masters, Mapa, Milarepa, and their students, down into the various lineages of the Dakpo Kaji lineage. Dakpo Kaji means all the lineages originating from Gampopa's students, of which the Kamapa's lineage, Kamakaju, is one lineage, and there is many others. Now, I jumped that, because I taught this extensively in the courses which we had. And actually, you can read it. There's no need for much explanation. You can read it in the book. For a Tibetan teacher, it's very important to point out where the lineage comes from. Like for me, my lineage comes from Genyo Rinpoche and his teachings, or the Mahamudra teachings received from him. Also, we went through this text with Khenpo Chodrak and received the Lung and some explanations, Khenpo Chodrak Rinpoche. But basically behind Genyo Rinpoche there is the 16th Kamapa and several other masters, and thus it goes through the Kamakajil lineage. So, as a proof of authenticity, it's also, and to inspire confidence, it's very important to know this teacher is not sitting here just because of himself or herself, but is part of a transmission coming through the ages. And for me it's very, very wonderful, yes. It's inspiring to work with you through this text of Dakpo Tashi Namgyal, because like this, I'm sure to give you the good old Dharma. That Dharma which has already proven authentic, which is the one that has the power to liberate beings when you actually practice it. So the idea is that one would receive this Dharma and then pass it on. Pass it on to others. Now it was my wish to pass this on to as many as possible, make it available, that a good understanding of the Mahamudra tradition arises in our stream of being. My wish to go through these detailed explanations, and you must keep in mind what I'm doing now is very, how do you say, comprised? Can I say that? It's very condensed. It's very condensed. It's many pages in a short teaching. Yeah? I'm going through and giving you a summary. Now, if you are inspired, study the much more, you can say, slow explanations as we shared them in the courses. And my inspiration is also to have you taste the precise explanations of the Mahamudra lineage, so that you don't stay with a very vague, enthusiastic but hazy understanding of Mahamudra. That you know that it is a very precise science, actually, of how to enter awakening in the most natural way, leaving aside all unnecessary effort. But I must say you that effort is necessary. Effort is necessary because the beginning is difficult. The beginning is difficult because one is so habituated to patterns of functioning where one is so important oneself and always grasps onto everything that's happening to oneself, that these patterns, they need an effort to find into that natural practice. So a lot of effort in the beginning, a little less effort as we continue, as we become stable, and less effort until we can see that actually opening into the experience of now, that's the path of non-effort. And when that trust arises and the joy of experiencing that, then we have actually entered the path of Mahamudra. Until then, we are going for it. We haven't yet really tasted it. But when the experience arises that the so-called letting go, which I prefer to call opening, this opening into the experience, that is the key. Then we start with uncontrived practice. Then the uncontrived yoga starts. So let's meditate at the end of this first session. We have had one full explanation now. And let's meditate for a moment in the most natural way that is accessible to us now, which basically means to relax the intellect. Nothing to think about. So actually I propose to you that you continue to meditate, except for those who need the pause, and we continue the teaching. 4:10 in our country. So in 14 minutes